Good evening, everybody, and welcome to a very special episode of Songwriting Simplified, also known as Studio One Pro 7 Live, with me, Jonny Lipsham, and also with the masterful Mr. Rich Cresswell, who has joined me as tonight's special guest to give me a wee bit of a hand with tonight's show. It is my birthday today. And so we're kind of celebrating my birthday at the same time. This is a unique, can we say interstellar event? Because this is like the first ever time that my birthday has coincided with a brand new Studio One launch. That's just like never ever happened before, and probably will never ever happen again. So this is completely a unique one-off event. And so I thought we would just kind of maximize that to the most that we can. And yeah, so how you doing, Rich?
Very good. Happy birthday to you, Jonny. And if it's your birthday out there, anybody, happy birthday to you too.
Yeah, apparently I share my birthday with John Lennon, his son Sean, David Cameron, and a Portuguese king in the 13th century, apparently. So, who knew? So, let's go see who we got here first. Now, I know that because I set this show up yesterday, any people, in fact, I think I set this up like 2 days ago. Anybody that posted in the chat over the last 2 days, your posts are gone because unfortunately that is how YouTube is currently working. It's bloody annoying because it means I have no idea who really was in first. So I'm just going with what the chat is currently saying. And it looks like it's Tony Stringer who is first, according to this. Anyway, and then we got Billy Morgan. We've got the W5 family are here. That would be Craig. I know Craig is kind of, I think he's working with no electricity at the moment due to various weather events in the United States. And we got Rock Tees here. We got John Hawk. We got John Hathwaite. We got Neil Thompson. We got Cal Truduzia. We got Stephen Wilson. We got Gardner99. We got Brett Marler, Don Oliver. We got Roger Beckett. We've got Rich Cresswell. We've got Keith from Radio Tuck Frumpet. We've got scrolling further down. We've got Danny Taylor. We've got Just Bob, who says he's going to miss the show because he's working. He says, give Jonny a birthday present by tapping the like button. That would certainly be very kind if you could do that. We've got Gob My 5, who is in Salzburg, the birthplace of one of my heroes, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And we have Brett Marler, who I don't think I mentioned before. And we've got Dwayne, and we've got Secret Squirrels Studios here as well. And I think I've got to the bottom of the chat. So if you're watching and you are new to the show because you have found us because it's the Studio One 7 launch, welcome. Glad you're watching. Rich and I are going to guide you through some of the main things that have been added to Studio One this time around. So it should be pretty good. Please do subscribe. And if you've got a question, you can ask it because it's subscriber only mode for everybody's protection. And so if you subscribe, give it 2 minutes and you'll be able to get in and you'll be able to ask your questions, and we would be very, very happy to answer them. Since it is my birthday, if you would like to bestow me with a birthday gift, which I would appreciate, there is a link in the description below this video to my PayPal. You can hit me there for whatever you wish to hit me with. And I will try and get a link into the chat as well once we get underway, because I think Rich has some demos lined up that he's going to kick us off with, and I will pick up with some demos as well very shortly. But I will get that link in there as well, and during the show, if you would like to go and make a birthday donation, you are more than welcome to. But there's no obligation. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. I don't mind. I'm 49 years old. I'm big enough and ugly enough not to cry. I promise. All right. Over to you, Rich, my friend. What are you going to start with?
Really, first of all, I think there's a lot of people that were kind of wondering what would happen next and where would things go. And I think we've learned over the years that generally a lot of things that we want from the software that we use, we vocalize it and it gets listened to, and quite often it gets implemented where it's appropriate. You may be aware, obviously, from Jonny's videos already, that we have some really neat features like the launcher, which enables us to loop and manipulate samples in a new way. So what I wanted to do is actually just show you a couple of little intricacies about how we can go about manipulating those, because it's not just dragging your samples in and then just pressing play on the different scenes and looping them. You can still use it like you would the arranger track. You can do things like, your effects, you can change the loops, you can edit the samples directly from within the cells themselves. So I just wanted to go through a little bit of that with you, so that we can demystify some things. Okay.
Sounds awesome, dude.
So let's have a look at getting my screen shared here, because that would be pretty cool.
So trying to remember how to do this to make sure that it goes full screen.
Oh yeah. Let's get the right one shared as well. It's really funny if we were just sharing ourselves again, like in an infinite pool.
Oh, an infinite thing.
Jonny's and Rich's.
All right, hang on. Let me do that. There we go.
Cool. So hopefully you guys can see this. And so we're looking currently at the launcher. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of a few things here. Okay. So we've got these tracks on the side here. I've labeled them appropriately. So there's like a break one, there's this one for music, there's one for bass, one for vocals and instruments. As you probably know from the video already, we can access the launcher by hitting this button here. There's a couple of different modes, of course. So you've got side by side, which enables you to still have the arranger open. And the cool thing about it is that, if we have something, let's just drag this in here. Can you see this is muted right now? If we were to hit this little arrow here, which is pointing in the direction of the launcher, which means that the stuff here is going to play. If we press it, it turns that little arrow around and this becomes unmuted, which means that we can actually play in the arranger. We press this again and only stuff within the launcher will play. And you can do this globally or per track. So we could have that loop, we could have that loop, use the global, and we can play our selection of instruments. Now, it doesn't have to be loops in here. This could be things that you've already recorded in, okay? And you can be playing, your beat within your launcher, and you could have a pre-recorded vocal or guitar piece, and then all of a sudden you want to just do take the crowd by surprise, and then you're going to just go bump straight back into the launcher, mute the guitar track, and then these cool loops that you've got included will play. So there is something about obviously the scenes, or the scenes and the cells, that works much the same as it does with events. When we have an event inside the arranger, we can click on it and it opens up the editor window, and we can do cool things with that. We can do that in here as well. So I can load that up and I can actually change this loop region here so that it's half the amount. So when that cell is now looping, it's only looping within this loop region here. But we can also do other things like, obviously adjust the gain. It's too loud, let's make it a bit quieter, and so on and so forth. If we were to go to the browser, we pull up, say, for example, an effect. an effect onto a channel, which will affect everything within this lane of loops of audio, which I've actually done here on this vocal. So I've added analog delay here, and something, if you're not looking at the release notes, you'll notice that there's this new resonance control on the color for analog delay. So if you've been using analog delay in the past and thought that it'd be quite nice to have some resonance controls, it's actually now there. So we're making use of that on this little vocals track. And what I'll do is I'll just play that clip. Now, when we hover over each of these cells, we can play them. So we're seeing these little controls here, and any blank cell essentially within the same region is going to be able to stop whatever's playing here. So if you're kind of like looking around trying to like, how do I stop this? How do I stop this? You just press an empty cell and that's going to stop it. Now, when it comes to the cells themselves, there's a couple of different play modes. Okay, so we can right click on these and we get these different play modes. Loop is going to be the default, as is global. But there's a few different ways that we can trigger this. We can trigger it as a one shot. Okay, so that it just plays through once. We see it in the editor here. That's it, it's done. It's not playing anymore. It's done. There's a couple of other launch modes as well. So global, which is trigger, i.e. clicking it or using your atom to trigger it. We've got trigger, gate, and toggle. I'm a big fan of toggle, and I'd recommend, if you're not familiar with launchers and that sort of thing right now, the toggle works pretty neat in the sense that when we press it, and we can press it again to turn it off. So it's toggling it on and off. And then we've got the quantize. So globally, it's going to be per bar, okay? But we could have it to, let's say, an eighth note. Now, let's do something here in regards to the scenes. So these are triggering slightly differently at the moment. So this one is set up as a one shot. I'm going to put it as a loop. I'm still going to keep this global, but I'm going to keep this on toggle, okay? And we'll play through a couple of scenes here, just so you can kind of hear what's going on with these. So we can hear that each of the scenes are doing some different things. And I came across a question on Jonny's video earlier on about, well, okay, if we're playing these scenes and we're kind of arranging them and coming up with like a different performance, how do we go about recording those? It's actually like the easiest answer in the world. Start at the beginning. and we press record. It's really that simple. So we're going to hit record. And that's it. You're done. And can you see that all of the events are now sort of printed within the arranger track in the order that you played them, right? So once we're finished with the launcher, we can go back to the arranger globally, and that's our performance. And this is the bit that you can then sort of bounce as your performance, and you can say, right, okay, I'm happy with that as it is. Maybe let's group it all together. And maybe you're happy with, say, for example, the music part of it, but you'd kind of like to mess around with the break a little bit because maybe you messed that up or something, okay? So individually, we can then go back to the launcher. We're muting the events here, okay? We could pull these out of the way if we really want to, okay? Go back to the beginning and we can start the whole process again of recording. So if we start again. Okay, so we now have a different performance with different drums in. We go back to there and we've got different drums. We've got all these different sections here. And we can use the global and go back to the arranger and we can play that back. So that's it. And then you do your normal export to whatever mixdown you want to, whether it's a WAV or an MP3. That's your performance, and you're good to go, just like any other recording that you do. So that's the launcher. I think how I would envisage most people using it as a creative tool to take existing sounds and create a piece of music with it, whether it's for live performance or whether it's kind of, want for a better phrase, in the studio.
I personally think it's one of the most powerful things that we've added to Studio One yet. I mean, obviously there are other DAWs that do a similar thing. Most notably, Ableton Live does this and is based around this kind of concept. But still, I think the way we've implemented it is a unique twist on the concept. So I personally really like it. This is not my scene really. I'm a jazz guy, as you know, but even from that point of view, I think I can branch out into fusing other things, other styles and other sounds with what I do, and the launcher would serve that purpose really, really well.
Exactly. And obviously the important thing to bear in mind is that actually building these cells up and choosing the sounds that you want to choose, it's actually pretty easy. We can go into our browser, we can go into our files, we can look in, for example, our folders for samples, but we can also make use of Splice now, which is fully integrated into the browser. the cool thing about this, obviously, as we already know, is that you can, if you're logged in. So I'm currently logged in. I have an account. I can take, let's say, for example, I have this audio here, this bass. I can drop this into here. Okay, so it's just going to process that. It's going to try and find samples that are kind of in the same key, roughly the same tempo, and then we can kind of build from there. So I'm not sure what this will end up sounding like, but let's have a look what we've got there. So. So yeah, that kind of fits in with the sort of the vibe of the bass and the melody and everything like that. So that's cool, and we can kind of move through these and pick what we want from them. And then we've got the ability to navigate between different genres as well. There's nothing wrong with doing cross genre stuff. So Jonny likes jazz, I like let's say drum and bass. You could do a jazz drum and bass thing. It's been done. It works. It's pretty cool.
It certainly has been done.
Yeah. The neat thing about this is that, obviously you don't have to use the things that are included, with things like Splice and that sort of stuff as well. You can use your own stuff, So
Yep.
if you're a live drummer, right, and you've done a little beat or whatever, and you think, oh, that's pretty neat, I like that one, but yeah, I don't want to be playing that all night. You could start building like a little playlist. Okay, that's something that we can do. So we can add our scenes, and if we click this little icon here, we can see these scenes in order here. So if you're familiar with the when we've got the chord track, we have the all the different chords and the arrangers sections in order here. This is kind of like the same sort of thing. So we've got the ability for these scenes here, but we can also make obviously playlist as well. So we can add a playlist. We'll call it playlist 1. Yeah, whatever, that's cool. And then we can promote these to the playlist. So you can come up with a little thing for a song that you're doing. Maybe you've got a guy who, uses like an Atom or something like that, or like an MPC on stage who's triggering these. Even as a live thing, you can set these up as a playlist, or even if you've got a song idea, you can kind of manipulate the order in the way that you think works best for the song that you're creating. So it's a very powerful tool, very powerful.
Yeah, and being able to use the launcher with not only your own sound. So let's say you have you like this thing that Rich has come up with, but you want to do your own vocal ad libs. You can record directly into a cell.
It's fantastic. It's basically really cool. A cell is like an event.
Yeah,
it's an event. Okay, but it's an event that you can sort of manipulate in a way that you've never been able to do in the arranger track.
Yep.
And I think it's a very clever way of doing it as well. I think for people that are familiar with things like Ableton and Ableton Push, they'll be familiar with that sort of thing. I think it's neat. I think it's neat. And I think it requires a little bit of experimentation. So I'd recommend anybody that's now on Studio One 7, try it out. Yep. Maybe with some stuff that you've already got. And if you've got Studio One 7, you're going to have some sounds included from Splice already that you can use to kind of investigate it and kind of figure things out for yourself.
Exactly.
Don't be afraid to like jump into an event and like just double click here. You see how I've got this like this vocal shout thing, and I've just adjusted the gain here so that there's a bit of a drop off because I wasn't a big fan of the bit at the end. If you think that it's looping too quickly, extend this. So a good example of that would be this sample here. So when I dragged this in, it was like that. Now, if I play this, it's not great. It's too quick. Right, stop the scenes. That's pretty annoying, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're into like Dutch Gabba.
Yeah.
So we just extend this so that it's more representative of what we want. That's it. You know, like you're doing a 4 to the floor thing, right?
Oh, banging sub tune right there.
So make use of the cells in the same way, I suppose, as you would audio events. We're just treating them from the perspective of we're looping them or one-shotting them. And when you one-shot something, all that's happening is pretty easy actually. But it's just if we go into this one here and we change this from loop to one-shot, you see it's just turning that loop region off. So if you're playing something and you're not sure, you know, why is it not looping? Why is it not looping? Maybe this just needs to be changed to loop or something like that. So it's a neat thing, and I'd advise everybody to experiment with it if it's of interest to you. Absolutely. Like with all things, new tools, new instruments and stuff, it takes a little bit of time to get used to it. And I think it's neat. I think it's neat, and I think you guys should at least try it out.
Yeah, I totally agree. You can use not just the stuff that's in Splice to get creative with, but you can record directly onto a cell if you want to do your own thing. You can drag something from an existing song directly into a cell, and you can chop it up. You can make it shorter, like Rich was just showing you. So if you've got just one wee snippet of a song, like maybe one little phrase from a trumpet solo that you really like the sound of from one of your songs that you've done, you can just grab that. You can put that into a cell. You can shorten it and manipulate it, and then you can loop it, and you can set that quantized value to an interesting value so that it offsets every time it repeats. So you can do all sorts of really, really creative things. And I'm with Rich. I think, with the launcher, there is a user guide for it, but I would just say don't necessarily look at the user guide. Just basically try things and see how intuitive it is, and just set aside a couple of hours to just have a mess around and see how creative you can be. And you might surprise yourself that 4 or 5 hours go by and you've come up with something unexpected that you want to keep.
Exactly, and and so I mean, Brett's kind of answered a question that hopefully I've already covered already. But yes, you can add your own events.
Yes,
like that. That's a thing. Just I mean, we'll kind of like demonstrate that as a very on a very, very basic level. But if I just go into this little drum kits thing here, let's just assume that I've got this drum loop, right? That's something that I recorded. Okay, it's in the arranger. Okay. Remember, obviously, when we've got the launcher live, if this is pointing in the direction of the launcher, it means that the launcher's playing. If it's pointing in the direction of the arranger, it means the arranger's playing. Okay. But this is some recorded audio, and pop that in there.
Just like that.
And I can go into there, and if I wanted to be like really like quirky or whatever, I could have one reversed.
Yep.
And I could have one that's the normal way around. Or just have a very short snippet of it. Just that little section. That's the bit that's going to, be playing. So you can do some pretty cool things with it. Don't let it kind of intimidate you. It's actually pretty fun.
Oh, it's way too much fun to tell the truth.
Yeah. So again, just to sort of surmise, the scenes, they kind of go vertically. Okay. And then as you add things in, obviously this section here will get longer and longer and longer and longer as you add more tracks. You can play a whole scene, which means everything in this sort of vertical section, okay, at the top here. So you can play the whole thing up here. We can stop everything here. We can obviously add a scene in between. So if we want to add something in between here and here, for your sake, everyone's going to do this slightly differently, by the way. There isn't a rule, so don't think there is. So it's not going to be like you're going to do an intro section and then you're going to do like, you know, a verse and a chorus. It doesn't kind of work that way. It's going to be different sounds, different textures, different beats, combinations of that you think work.
Yep.
Okay. And you can kind of like trigger these in different ways. Like I was showing in the recording, you know, you can play this scene, okay, but I can turn off, say, for example, this red bass, okay. You can go, yeah, pretty funky with it. And you know, I'm doing this completely off the cuff. This is not something that I practiced. I put this together literally 2 minutes before the show started.
Yeah. Yep. I can vouch for that. I can verify that.
So yeah, it's fun. I advise have fun with it as well. Obviously, all of these tracks here, they are linked to these. So if you go, I've got nothing in there. There's nothing in the arrange. What if I delete that? I'm going to remove that track. Can you see what's happening here?
Yep.
So they are linked.
Yep.
And now the launch is empty. Sad faces.
Yeah. Let's see. Brett was asking, so this basically is taking the place of the scratch pad. No, it doesn't replace the scratch pad. I think this is kind of like an addition to, because I think the scratch pad, while similar and even perhaps using some similar technology and some similar ideas, is not really the same thing. It's an extension of the concept, perhaps.
It's a different way
Yep.
of creating songs, performances, or anything that you might want to use within a song in a different way. Think of it as like, you know, think of all the guys that have always been using like the beat samplers, like the MPCs and the push, and they will take these like little snippets of samples and stuff, and then I'll kind of just bring them all together. So like there will be people that actually do a lot of things in drummer bass and jungle where they'll kind of like live drum, okay?
Oh, yeah.
And some of those samples are kind of like little hi-hat loops, okay? They don't actually play every single hi-hat hit in. They trigger the little sort of mini performance, and then they've got a kick and the snare, and then they've got some other little break beats and stuff, and they kind of trigger them at different points to create a new rhythm, a new backbeat. That's one of the uses that it has, but you can certainly use it in the way that you feel that it works for you. You don't have to be doing beats, so to speak, you know, air quotes and all the rest of it.
Yeah, air quotes. Right, what else should we take a look at?
I think we've got new instruments, and
we do.
For anybody out there, I know that Ron should be pleased with this.
I don't think.
And anybody that's using any external gear, there's the CV instruments, and this is pretty damn nifty. Yeah, now, obviously, it's very difficult to show you on a screen share like this, but We'll open it up and just cover it in brief. So you can send audio into this, okay? So you can send it CV, okay? But it can send CV itself, which means that you can then manipulate external hardware, okay, that has CV input. The real neat thing about this, obviously, is that, obviously, first of all, it's native, okay, so it's going to be real stable. But there's some other functionalities within this as well. So we do have the ability to calibrate. Now, if I was to sort of calibrate this and have this come out of the audio as you're hearing it now, you're going to hear a bunch of clicks and taps and things like that, because that's the sort of the pictures being sent down the audio pipes, okay? But it can do all the same things that, sending a CV signal to any piece of modular gear will do if you had a piece of hardware that does this. So it kind of circumvents the need to have, something that sends CV in hardware. You can do it straight from the computer as an audio output. So just like any other, CV generator, you can have it go out of any of the outputs that you currently have. And also there's a gate out as well. So we have the option to obviously set it as gate, trigger. We have the ability to obviously re-trigger, have that signal re-trigger. And then we've got the ability to adjust what the trigger time is, all the way up to a second and all the way down to a single 1 millisecond. But we're also sending glide information as well if we want to. That needs to be enabled. And we have pitch bend ability as well for that signal. So we can send this signal to an oscillator that we've got outboard, or anything that receives CV input. We can control it directly from within Studio One. And that's actually pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
Because if you've got an older piece of gear, or you've got modular gear, and you've always thought, it'd be really cool to control that with my MIDI keyboard, and I need to get these extra bits and pieces to get it to work. And how does that work with getting it recorded into Studio One? And how do you don't need to worry about it too much. You can use this as your sort of your instrument, your trigger, have an audio track that's basically recording the signal from your hardware, but you're still triggering it from within Studio One. And that's pretty neat.
Yep, pretty powerful.
We've got sort of the re-envisaged Deep Flight one, which I think has been covered on a few videos already. It essentially works much like 3 instances of presence, but with some extra controls that enable you to do some pretty cool things. There's 3 sections to it, just like in Lead Architect. So we click here for our sound sources, and then we have a look at what sound sources are available to us. We've got things like choirs, drones, keys, leads, organs, pads, percussive sounds, and soundscapes. I love me some soundscapes.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Cool. So we can have something like frozen metal, okay? But then we could pick something like keys. We'll pick some analog keys, and we'll go with this machine learnings, because, ain't that a topic of discussion these days?
Yep.
And then maybe some pads. So we'll go with some analog pads, and we'll go with, we had frozen before, so let's go the opposite way. Let's go ragged strings. And we can control these with the sort of, I call it an XY pad, but it's more of an XYZ pad.
Yeah.
And as with all things, you are able to adjust things like the ADSR per layer, and these are color coded. So when you're adjusting the blue controls, you're essentially adjusting this one here that's currently labeled ragged strings, and we have the ability there for enabling global effects like the arpeggiator, the repeater, the reverb, and the delay. All of these things are customizable. So when you select on something, it's essentially going to open it up. Now, you don't need to have that open, because these are all toggleable, you can close them. You can just simply enable them by pressing the power button, turn them on and off. If you need to adjust the settings within them, like the pre-delay here, then you can just click on the actual text itself and obviously adjust the mix here. And then obviously you've got your overall volume. So this is control how loud it is, pitch, mod wheel. Everything else is pretty much self-explanatory because it's stuff that you already know. Okay, we have the ability to assign LFOs to different parameters via the mod matrix. So we can currently see here that by default, this particular preset has the mod wheel associated with the filter cutoff and LFO1 via the mod wheel, which is also adjusting the cutoff as well, which means there's some modulation happening to the filter cutoff, but depending on how much we have this mod wheel turned up, determines how much of that is affected. Good way of demonstrating that. Turn the mod wheel up. Let me turn it down. So you can hear there's a difference in the overall sound itself. Obviously, you've got your individual effects, such as modulation. These are things that you might be familiar with inside Presence XD. Things like EQ, panning. This is sort of like an auto pan thing that you can auto pan over one bar as it is here, and the amount of the effect that's actually applied to that as well. So definitely cool, and it means that the instrument sounds and things that you had before in Deep Flight 1, if that was a thing that you were really into at that time, it's kind of a new way to kind of rediscover it and put it to some good use. And that's some really nice. I think it was Tim from Tim Talks, who basically said it's a texture machine.
It is, yeah, totally.
And yeah, I couldn't agree more. Texture and these sorts of sounds are really useful for really making things sound a little bit more organic or digital, if that's the way you want to go.
Yep. Yeah,
so,
Deep Flight 1 is awesome.
And paired with Lead Architect, because they both sort of operate essentially in the same fashion, okay, with different kind of sound sources available to you inside them, means that they kind of work quite nicely with each other. So you can kind of mix and match, maybe use them as a combined instrument.
Yes.
That can be pretty neat. That gives you basically a combined instrument then with 6 sound sources. So if we were to go to the browser, okay, and we go to our instruments, we've got Lead Architect currently here at the moment. We could just drag D Flight 1, hit combine, and now we've got these two the texture machine, and we've got the lead machine. So we can have completely randomly, we could have a bunch of different presets in here, and we could have a bunch of different presets in here, all loaded up, and have them play all at the same time, which is pretty cool.
6 voices for the price of 2.
It's very neat.
Yep.
So CV instrument, super cool. And Ron's put in the chat there, CV, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark. Well, there's too many exclamation marks.
Yeah, it's like 9 of them.
We'll be talking about that on the meetup, and absolutely, yeah, we will. And because I think it's really cool. I think I did. I was a bit naughty because I did say to him, I says, well, what comes out, you'll be very pleased with. And I've said that to everybody because I think there's a lot of things in here that lots of people would be interested in. But it's very difficult when you know ahead of time what's coming out to not tell somebody it's the worst thing in the world, because people are going to like it. And it is really, really a fantastic release. I've heard things about people saying, what about the mixing guys, man? What about the mixing guys? But you've said this yourself, Jonny. There's always themes behind releases. And I think the theme here is for people that create music.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, this is not necessarily a release for mixers, and it's not necessarily a release for orchestral people or orchestral composers. But that's not to say that those folks are not excluded. They can upgrade to version 7 and make use of what's available now, because everything that was in version 6 is in version 7, so they can continue doing what they were doing and just be in a position to to be a recipient and a beneficiary of what comes down the line in the future.
Exactly. Now, although we had a little bit of a blip with it earlier on today, there is something that I think people are going to be super stoked to know about. Hang on a minute, that's not the piano roll, but it
hang
is.
on. Sorry, that's me. That was me.
No. Oh, where are we? There we go.
Yeah, we're on your screen. I accidentally showed mine. Sorry.
That's okay. No, well, I'll say it again. Hang on a minute. That's not the piano roll, but it is. Because it looks different, right? And the piano roll has kind of been given a bit of an upgrade. Okay. So we'll just go to that because that's what we know. Okay. We can see the keyboard on the side and we can see that we've got the ability to, obviously highlight the pitches within the scale that we've selected. In this case, C major triad. Now I've made a whole bunch of scales and I will share them with you as and when we, meet each other along the way on Zoom meetings and things like that. There's quite a few. So if you're in need of scales, I've got you covered. There's a gazillion. That's not the point though. The point is you can obviously from the scale panel itself, we could now obviously switch to like Dorian. Do you remember we were doing the whole Halloween thing and it's Dorian flat 5? There's a scale for that. So we can make use of this now. So if you're currently on Studio One 7 and you're doing the Halloween challenge and you're like, I'm not too keen about doing Dorian flat 5, take a screenshot now. Look at the little blue notes here.
Yes.
Yeah. C, D, D sharp, skip 1. F, F sharp, skip 1. Skip 1, A sharp. There you go. We can view these notes in scale like this. We see the relationship of each of the individual keys within that scale to the root.
With lovely Roman numerals for the musicologists amongst us.
Yes, yes. I can count to 10, don't you know?
I can count to X.
Yes. But we can also take a look at the notes that have been used as well. Now, currently there's no notes in there, right? So maybe if we just put some notes in there, right? So there's no instrument attached here, so we're not going to hear any sounds. But we're going to put the notes in the lighter areas, because remember, we know that those are the ones within the scale. We can see those, just the notes that we've used. What if we have notes that we put in the wrong places? So let's just, for argument's sake, just put a bunch of notes there. You see those are the notes used. Those are the notes in scale. Those are the notes used. Those are the notes in scale. Can you see there's some missing? There's a reason for that. It's because they're not in the scale. It's really useful for you to be able to understand what notes, obviously, would be useful in your scale. But also, if you need to make adjustments, okay, to notes within the scale, like, maybe it needs to be here instead. Don't worry. This change you just made is not going to be wrong. It's in the scale. That's going to be right. That's going to be right. That's going to be right. They're all going to be right. So if you need to make an amendment after the fact because you played something in and you're like, pretty sure I got a bum note there, you can go into here, you can adjust the MIDI notes, put them where you need to. It's really quick way of doing it. Aside from obviously understanding the relationship between obviously the notes that you've got within the scale and the root. So it's a very useful tool. Using this in combination with things like Lucas's Harmony Wizard, I mean, you've pretty much got everything you could possibly ever need for, writing music, composing, that sort of thing.
Yep. Brett has a rather musicological question. And he says, suppose you want to make an 8-note scale, say like a Phrygian blended with a Dorian. So it would be Phrygian with the 6th from the Dorian added to it. So yes, you'd make it an 8-note scale, and something like that would be possible because, as you can see from the little keyboard next to the scales list, you can make use of all 12 steps of the scale if you want to invent something.
Yeah, and as you can see here on the list of ones that I've created thus far, there's some pretty spicy ones in there. Mixolydian augmented, Phrygian dominant, Super Locrian diminished. Super Locrian natural 6. There's so the alter scales, double harmonic major. You can do actually quite a considerable amount with this. I actually don't think that it'd be possible for you to not be able to do anything, because technically all the notes that are possible are right there to be edited.
Yeah, the only limitation that we do have is that everything is within a 12-tone equal temperament system.
Temperament, yeah. That's the only thing. But that's generally what we work in. If you were doing Persian or Indian music, that obviously doesn't necessarily adhere to those sorts of things. Yeah, it's going to be tricky. It's going to be difficult. But to be honest with you, even these days, a lot of Asian music, Middle Eastern music, is succumbing to equal tone temperament for the sake of things like pop music and movies and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, film music. Bollywood is such a huge industry dominating the Pacific Asian market.
Yeah.
So, and that's kind of a syncretistic blend of Eastern and Western, but it's fundamentally based in 12-tone equal temperament.
Yeah, and you'll probably note that they'll probably be doing things like double harmonic majors and Persian scales, and
Yep.
They will be mixing and matching both Western and Eastern kind of scales. It's I mean, music is a universal language, but it does help to have some rails sometimes, and that's why equal tone temperament is so popular. Because can you imagine having something like stem separation as we have it now without equal tone temperament? It'd be so difficult.
Yeah, it would be very difficult algorithmically to have microtonal stem separation. I mean, it's hard enough as it is in a Western 12-tone equal temperament system.
Yeah, Brett's put there, so microtonal music would be a struggle for it, and I'm not to say that it wouldn't be, but I would suspect that it could be.
Yeah.
And I think that applies to anything. I mean, I've been using spectral layers since it pretty much came out from Steinberg. Although that's pretty decent, it's not great at everything. It's the nature of the beast.
It is.
But Studio One's stem separation is doing a pretty fine job, and I think its biggest use case is going to be for folks that have already got recordings that they've done.
Yes,
and they're looking to finesse them a little bit. I'd highly recommend watching Marcus Huskin's video on the the new tempo detection.
That's really, really good. Yeah,
you must watch it. That's like required reading. Definitely watch that, because he will explain to you how to do it properly, how to make sure that you detect the downbeat. And I think he takes one of Fat Hat Soul songs that they recorded to tape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He does the stem separation, and does all the whole like detect tempo and does a tempo map for them, everything like that, without Melodyne. It's awesome.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's really, really good. And there was a question there about stem separation and whether it's done inside the DAW or whether, it uses AI from the internet to do it. No, it actually does it algorithmically inside Studio One using a specially created algorithm that I think we got from Zplane, or we partnered with Zplane to develop it.
Yes, yeah, they're kind of like the forerunners for it. Yeah, I mean, we're calling it's kind of being referred to because it's kind of like the word of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even a word really. AI, artificial intelligence. It's not intelligence or intelligent, and neither is it artificial intelligence. It's essentially machine learning, just like isotope stuff, when with the sort of ozone stuff where they kind of mix and master for you. It's basically giving it lots and lots of data, lots and lots of information, and making determinations on how to best get those things out of it. So in this instance, obviously, you're talking about essentially 4 sections. I think we've got, is it vocals, percussion, instruments, and bass?
Yes, it's you're close actually. Yeah, vocals, drums, guitar, and others is kind of what it is at the moment.
That's the one. Yeah. So so it's the same as spectral layers, then basically.
Pretty much exactly the same in that respect as spectral layers. So it has its kind of like default things that it's looking for, and then it has like an everything else track.
Yeah, and this has been brought up before by Ron about the others thing, especially as a keyboardist as he is, that it is going to struggle with things that are sort of multi-layered.
Yeah, I'm picking everything. Yeah,
it's just the nature of it, and I think we should be at least fair to it in that respect, because it will get better. All these things will get better, but it's blooming good the way that it is right now. Really is.
It's really quite impressive. For our first attempt at doing this, I mean, everyone has to bear in mind, this is like our first shot at doing something like stem separation. And, it will get improved. It will get overhauled. And it will get shaped by customer feature requests because, one of the things that at Presonus that we really recognize is that actually our customer base are very, very knowledgeable. And so, there are customers who, they use things like stem separation tools from other DAWs, or they use spectral layers, and we can draw on customer wisdom as to how best to shape the future development of something like the stem separation tool. The demonstration of this that I did in my overview video.
I'm just going to have to interrupt you there. I'm going to have to love and leave you folks. So
Okay.
I've got something that I need to be doing. I actually need to be available for somebody right now, and but I'm sure you've got it, and I hope everybody joins everybody on the Zoom later on to hang out and talk a little bit more about this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Rich, for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it.
That's not a problem.
All right, bud. You take care.
See you later, guys.
Cheers.
Take care.
Alrighty, so we will go over here to me. A big thank you to Rich for being able to make it out for at least some of the time. That was very, very generous of him to do that. So on the subject of the stem separation, I had a good play with it. I've been very fortunate to be able to have been working with the development team on Studio One 7 over the last over a year, pretty much. And it's been an epic journey. But one of the things that I've had fun with is the stem separation tool. And one of the really good use cases that I have found for the stem separation tool with Studio One is if you have your own material, your own songs, and you're wanting to create some backing tracks for use in the show page, for example. Well, a good use case of this is you can use the stem separation tool to basically isolate your vocal from everything else. And then what you can do is you can just mute the event that has the vocals on it. And then you can do a mix down of that without the vocal. And then you can create a whole set list of just vocalless backing tracks that you've derived using the stem separation tool, and you can put those into the show page. And then if you want to have like an additional keyboard or an additional guitar, then you can add a player to your show that has the keyboard or has the guitar, including, using Ampire for the amp sim, and the patch changes between songs, because you might want to clean, you might want some distortion, you might want like a nice 1950s tremolo with some chorus maybe on another song, and so on. So you can do all of those kind of things with the stem separation tool. And then, like I say, kind of create a show based around those backing tracks you've created with the stem separation tool. Really, really handy. I'm really quite impressed with it. One of the things I did point out was that there was a little splash of the Hammond organ on the song that I used on the vocal track before the vocal actually starts. That's okay, if you get things like that where it is actually separated from the vocal, and the vocal is something that you want to preserve, but you want to maybe do a rearrangement of your song and replace all the rhythm section and horn section and stuff like that for your song, but you want to keep the vocal. That's fine. You can just isolate that little bit where the Hammond organ just popped through, or whatever it is, a guitar, maybe a lead guitar, and you can just cut that out and it won't appear there. And then you can, use strip silence to finesse that vocal to make it extra clean, or you can use an expander or something like that to make it extra clean. And then you can start to rebuild like a fresh arrangement, but preserving the original vocals. So that's kind of another use case for the stem separation. I really like it. I think it's pretty awesome myself, personally. But let's see. I'm just going to go through and have a look. So we have the Massachusetts Studio Meetup, which will be starting very, very shortly. In fact, I think it's starting in an hour, the Massachusetts Meetup. So if you want to be around for that, that starts in just under an hour's time. And in the meantime, Billy Morgan is going to launch a Zoom, and we can go over and kind of like have a bit of a birthday bash. I have got some of this stuff to finish, so I'd be very happy to share that with you guys over there. So if you guys want to do that, we can certainly do that. We've not covered everything, obviously. I've talked about the stem separation without showing it. Rich did a great job of demonstrating the Splice integration and the launcher, especially the launcher. He was very, very thorough. So I hope that has really helped you. So if you've not seen the overview video that I did, please go check that out after the show, and leave a like on that video as well. I'd appreciate that too. If you've got some comments or some questions that arise out of watching that video, then you can ask them there as well. Likewise, if you think of a question for tonight's show, and obviously the show's finishing in just a minute, and you didn't really get to ask the question, it's fine. You can, when this show becomes a video, you can put the question in the comments, and I'll read through them as best I can and give you some answers. Or maybe what I'll do is I'll use your questions to foment the next show, which is going to be on Sunday for Sunday Night Live, where we will continue exploring the wonders of Studio One Pro 7. So if you've not purchased the upgrade, I highly recommend it. I really, really highly recommend it, especially if you are a very creative person, a very creative type. But, even if your bag is mixing and mastering and that's all you do, you're not really going to benefit much from the stem separation tool or the Splice thing. They're not really going to help you too terribly much. But mixing is your thing. I would still recommend you upgrade, because like I said earlier, that then positions you for future developments to version 7 that might include some more features that are going to benefit you directly, where the initial release of Studio One Pro 7 maybe doesn't at the moment, but there's a whole future ahead of us. And as John Hillman has already pointed out, next year we go to scheduled, depending upon how you pronounce it, feature releases that will be coming pretty much quarterly. So you will see a lot of regular bundles of new features that are added to Studio One Pro 7. So if that excites you, it excites me, then be upgraded or join the Studio One Pro Plus membership. And if you join the annual membership, at the end of your 12 months, you're going to get a free perpetual license frozen in time at the point at which your subscription ends. And that's yours to keep, including whatever is in it at that point in terms of feature bundles and things added to it. They're yours. And you can just, if you don't want to be a member anymore, that's fine. You can just carry on using that. No hard feelings, no big deal. You can just carry on using that. And, kind of sit out the next release if you want to. And then, if something else crops up within the release cycles of the future and the feature releases of the future that you go, actually, maybe I will go and grab that now. You can do that, and the upgrade price will still be the same. Okay? So if that excites you, then yeah, please take that advice on board. Otherwise, Billy has launched his after show birthday party for me and for you. So if you'd like to join us over there where we can celebrate that part. John says, how does the perpetual license work for monthly subscribers? It doesn't. You don't get it. That's how the perpetual license works for monthly subscribers. It's not part of the monthly subscription. You only get the perpetual license added if you are an annual subscriber. So you got to be on the annual plan if you want to get the free perpetual license at the end of the 12 months. If you're on the rolling monthly subscription, you don't get that. You just get everything that's in Studio One Pro Plus. You just don't get the perpetual license. That's the limitation of the monthly membership, but you get everything else. Okay? So I hope that helps answer that question. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining me tonight. I really appreciate it. We have 42 people here, which is damn near a record. In fact, I can now announce we have broken the record. I'm thinking of the wrong show because the Wednesday night record stood at 36 and we peaked at 46. So we have set ourselves a new Songwriting Simplified attendance record. So thank you very much, everybody. We got 34 likes. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. Thank you again for the great questions. And thank you to Rich Cresswell for joining me as well to help me out a wee bit. Because I have been drinking champagne. I'm a little bit tiddly, to say the least. So if you would like to see me continue to down the rest of my bottle of champagne, join us over at Billy's after show. If you would like to donate to my birthday thing, then hit my PayPal link. I would appreciate it. Until then, folks, I bid you a very, very good night.